Price-Mas is in many ways the man who leads a lot of this. He becomes really the figurehead for this indigenous movement. And Price-Mas had been inspired a lot by previous Haitian intellectuals of the earlier generation, people like Firmin, who he wrote a biography about, another man named Hannibal Price, who we took his middle name from. These people were very much inspirational to him. But he took their argument further, again, given the context of the intellectual currents in the 1920s. He says, we need to focus on the culture, right? We accept that there's racial equality. We reject scientific racism. That for us is a given, right? Our historical and independent history, experience rather, has shown that. But now what he's arguing is that the culture of Haiti is critical because it makes us independent, it gives us our Haitian identity, right? And he's very much an advocate of this. He was a teacher at a popular school in Haiti, Lycée Pétion, a very deep thinker. And he wrote a book based on his research in Haitian culture, particularly Haitian voodoo culture, Haitian folklore, which became called So Spoke the Uncle, right? And it was also based on several lectures that he gave in Haiti during this period. And it became incredibly inspirational. One Haitian writer said, quote, that this book shook Haiti to its very foundations when it came out in terms of the elite perceptions of Haiti. Here's someone from the intellectual class who's saying that these cultural parts of our heritage are to be embraced, not shunned. We can't say that that's the reason for our underdevelopment. That is actually what makes us unique. That is what makes us proud in terms of our Haitian identity, right? Globally, I'm sure all of you could guess what was happening elsewhere in the world at that point in time, mainly the Harlem Renaissance and that reawakening of a black consciousness in the broader black world. And you see that happening elsewhere in the United States, in the Harlem Renaissance. You see it happening in Europe, in Paris. You see just the very, very early emergence of a negritude movement. You see it in the Hispanic Caribbean as well, this celebration of black culture. But it has a really profound impact in Haiti because it is a celebration of black culture in opposition to what they read as American impositions, American denigration, and the interpretation of US-type racism in the way in which the administration of the occupation took place meant that these intellectuals saw their duty as a rejection of that, right, and a celebration of what it is to be a celebration of Haitian culture. And that's really what Price-Mas starts. And it leads to the production of this journal, which really had existed for a very short time. It's called a Review Indigène. And it lasted, I think, barely a year it actually ran for, but it really became a soundboard for several intellectuals, both elite and middle class, and some even from the non-middle class sectors of Haiti as well, who were very much supportive of this idea of the indigenous movement, supportive of Price-Mas, and agreed with him. And the talent just poured out. If one were to look at the existing copies of the Review Indigène today, you'd see some really remarkable writing. And this image here, it's almost like a roll call of some famous, this is just one issue of some famous Haitian writers, Émile Roumer, Philippe Toby-Masselin, Jacques Roumain. All of these guys were, Calbois, all of these guys were writing in this one issue. Now they become referenced as the generation of the occupation. Here's a group of youth who very much were opposed to what the occupation meant, right? They're young by this point in time. Someone like Jacques Roumain is barely in his 20s when he's writing in La Revue Indigène. They're gifted, they're talented, they're well educated, because a lot of them had experience gaining degrees outside of Haiti. And so they are using those talents to the service of A, promotion of Haitian culture as essential and crucial to Haitian nationalism, and two, a resistance to the US occupation. a resistance to this foreign imposition on them in Haiti during this period. And it's quite profound and inspirational. At the same time that's developing, it is in many ways becoming a symbol of a new youth movement that is emerging in Haiti too, that becomes more resistant. And that unfolds in 1929 when there's a student strike in 1929 in Haiti at an agricultural school called Damien. And that student strike in December of that year leads to unfolding of events in Haiti. I was just speaking with two students a while ago, and we're just, before coming in here, we're talking about how so many of these movements in Haiti emerge, these resistance movements or revolts around Christmas time. Mm-hmm. And that's a very interesting, we're trying to think of different ideas as to why that was so. But that's what happens. And this strike in Damien unleashes that resentment, that resistance impulse that had been in some ways kept under by martial law, by the marine occupiers, and by other mechanisms of social control. But now all it needed was that little valve to pop and for it to just come and rise to the surface. And once it came to the surface, it just moved and moved and moved, as we'll see other subsequent movements did. It became a national protest by 1930. Student protest in Damien expands, it incorporates laborers, it incorporates people from other schools as well, right? And it expands and becomes a national movement in 1929. And here's a shot that was taken of people actually going to the National Palace and protesting there around the Champ Mas, the central square in front of the palace, against the occupation, against what was happening in Haiti. And particularly, I mean, it wasn't always directly against occupation, it was against the government that was supported and placed in there by the United States Marines. They wanted to fight against that. So what happens in 1929, 1930 is a really important moment because you see a renewal of Haitian nationalism. You see a real force of a kind of new nationalism, so to speak, that emerges, in which this new generation that is coming in, that is leading the charge, are demanding a return to an independence, a kind of holding, a reclamation of Haitian independence. And this is really interesting because this is happening in a fashion that is very similar to decolonization, right? I mean, you see this happening as decolonization later on in the rest of the world, but in Haiti it was, they were very early in dealing with these issues. So eventually, the United States Marine occupation of Haiti ends in 1934. And it is not only the movement of the students and the protesters that lead to it. What that movement does is that it leads to an investigation of the occupation on the part of the United States. It also leads to greater solidarity on the part of African Americans in the United States against the occupation. And that investigation produces a document which recommends the termination of U.S. Marine control of Haiti, which finally comes through in the summer of 1934. And here is an image of the last U.S. Marines as a celebration as they are about to depart Haiti that year. Now, what follows after that is really a very defining moment in Haiti's history after the Marines leave. At that point onward, Haiti is abuzz with this strong sense of nationalism. These people who led this movement, the movement from the 1920s into the early 1930s, are very much supportive of that. And in turn, they're inspiring another generation, right? People like Jacques Ounet and Jean-Price Mas and others. And so they're very much energized by this nationalism and by the success that it produced as being a major contributive factor in the ending of the U.S. occupation of Haiti. And so Haiti goes through a really, really fascinating period after this period The new president is Vincent, who comes to power in 1930. A supporter of nationalism, the nationalist movement in Haiti during that period. And he gains a great deal of support from some of those same elite groups that I mentioned. But by 1934, Vincent is looked at with disregard by some of the more radical elements of that group, right? Some of them who had participated in the indigenous movement, who participated in the activism of 1929 and 1930. They felt that there were too many concessions that were being made to what is known as quote-unquote conventional or traditional Haitian politics. That this new group that was emerging was not going to have the representation they wanted. They had very radical ideas, right? A lot of them wanted more participation of the people of Haiti, not just the elite political class, but the people, a greater degree of democracy and popular participation, right? And they felt that what Vincent was doing, and in essence he was blocking that path to greater popular participation. And he was using another instrument that emerged during the occupation, or was strengthened during the occupation, and becomes prominent here, the Haitian Army, or Haitian Armed Forces, military. It wasn't an army until 1947. Prior to that, it was known as the Garde Haiti, right? And it's a way of preserving power. Now, let me explain a little bit, and this is not necessarily a defense of Vincent, but there was a political culture that had been in Haiti prior to the occupation, which continues despite the occupation throughout. And so when Vincent, although he was a nationalist, but when he gained power, there was a sense in which he wanted to hold on to that power. And here is where the contention emerged. Now he's trying to hold on to the power at a time in which there's this new generation that is not willing to allow that to happen. And so they are looking to other political alternatives. They're looking to ways in which Haiti's political future could move forward in a way that was different from conventional politics. Because they really saw that attitude on the part of the administration as a threat to the gains that they made in 1930 and also in 1934. That leads to the creation of the Communist Party of Haiti, which becomes prominent in 1934. It emerges, it had been underground for a few years prior, but it emerges in 1934, and it's led by Jacques Roumain, who I mentioned before, as one of the writers during the indigenous period. A really, really talented man, very gifted Haitian writer and novelist, whose famous book, some of you probably know, Masters of the Dew, still taught actually in schools in the Caribbean, in high schools. Everyone reads that book. A lot of people read that in high school. But he was also a very profound political, radical thinker. And so he starts this group, this party, this Communist Party, the PCH. And here's a quote from what became the kind of guiding doctrine of the PCH, a document he wrote called Analyse Schematique, which is essentially expressing the ideas of why the party emerged. And you can see there from that quote his dissatisfaction with the way nationalism is being shepherded by Vincent and his supporters. But you also see a real kind of allegiance to communism as a solution to Haiti's problems. And again, these international currents are informing these political developments in Haiti, because communism begins to spread globally during this period, particularly in Europe, where a lot of Haitian intellectuals were receiving their information, their knowledge. You're aware of that. Here in the United States as well, the expansion of the CPUSA during the years of the Depression and so forth, as a kind of lightning rod for some of the issues with labor and so on. So it's not unusual that someone like Jacques Roumain would be attracted to this. And he was a well-traveled man, not only in Europe, but he also spent some time in the United States prior to this. He gained support from a group of Haitian radicals like him, people who had similar experiences to him. And they are trying now to use the Communist Party as a way of expanding this alternative to Vincent's rule. But they're unable to do so. They don't have the space to do so. He is arrested, some of his supporters allies are also arrested, and he's forced into exile. He leaves Haiti in exile after being arrested. I think he spent less than a year in prison. By 1936, he was living elsewhere. I think he was residing in New York at that point in time. But what is important about what he does, though, is that it offers a new critique to Haitian politics, and also a new form of resistance to that pantheon of different forms of Haitian resistance. So now you get a Marxist-led type of resistance in Haiti under Jacques Roumain. Now, the repression during this period in the 1930s was one thing that aroused resentment and resistance, but another event that aroused resistance was the massacre of Haitians in the Dominican Republic, on the border between the Dominican Republic and Haiti in 1937. And this massacre awakened again that sometimes latent but always present resistance impulse in Haiti during this period, right? And that reaction to the massacre is interesting because it leads to an unraveling in the Garde d'Haïti, which has been a kind of wall around Vincent. The Garde itself had certain people who were contending for political power, and then when they saw the vulnerability exposed of the Vincent government during this period, they then begin a coup. It never succeeds. Vincent stays in power until 1941. But what's important about it is that it demonstrates that this push for resistance against dictatorship and against a kind of silence on the part of the dictatorship was still very much present. Now, by the time you get to the 1940s, when Vincent limits office in 1941 and the new president is Ili Lescaut, once more this global current becomes very important in Haiti, and it really, really increases in intensity. And that global current during this period is World War II. Haitian radicals during this period become very much inspired by what's happening in World War II, the idea for democracy being fought across in Europe, the anti-Hitler idea of the Allies, that anti-Hitler, anti-dictatorship sentiment becomes very powerfully read by Haitians, but it's read through what they see emerging in their country. And these are still people who have memories of 1930 and 1934. And so they're seeing by the early 1940s a space, a potential for resistance, a potential to fight for this great level of democracy. And without going into too much detail about it, because the details are all in my book about this period, but the government, in a sense, created the space for that, or gave more reason for that type of resistance, whether through ignorance, not really knowing or not really understanding what was happening, or by design, but it happened. And one of the greatest economic crises that Haiti faced was during this period, which was known as the Shada crisis, when the President Ili Lescaut supported the United States venture, a US-led venture, to build an association that was driven or rather geared towards the production of rubber, or the cultivation of rubber plants in Haiti to help support the Allied forces. At that point in time, sources for rubber had been cut off in Haiti, for the Allied forces, and so the production of alternate sources of rubber was important. And so you see here a cartoon of Lescaut, and it's kind of pointing to the fact that he has this association with the United States. Now, let me add here that not all of this was necessarily done with ill will in mind, right? I mean, there was a sense in which Lescaut felt that a project like this and other kinds of alliances he made with the United States would develop and expand Haiti, right? I mean, help Haiti out of its economic problem. It failed, and it was something he was unable to really recover from. because Haiti was unable to produce the revenue quantities that people that they anticipated and expected, and that could be usable. The war was coming to an end, so those quantities were not as important anymore. And finally, there was a great degree of displacement of the Haitian peasantry when their lands were taken over and put to the service of rubber cultivation. It was a hard blow for the Lesko government, and it intensifies this radicalism and this idea of an alternative that's led by the Marxists as well as other nationalists during this period. The real moment of reckoning and a real turning point comes in 1946, in January 1946, when students who were very much influenced by Jacques Coumet and the Communist Party, as well as Marxism as a general idea, create their own newspaper, a student newspaper at the university in Haiti, which was known as La Ruche. It's there on the overhead, which means the beehive. And they use that newspaper as an organ for voicing their own dissatisfaction with the government. But even so, a lot of that dissatisfaction was somewhat subtle. It wasn't always very overt. But the government read it as overt. Another major newspaper during this period was La Nation, which was a newspaper of another arm of the Marxists left in Haiti, the Socialist Party. La Nation had been banned. Lesko banned La Nation by 1943. Right? But La Ruche emerged in 1945, and in their January the 1st issue, they wrote a tribute to Haitian independence. January 1st is, of course, the anniversary of Haitian independence. And so they had this tribute to Haitian independence, but they had a line in their tribute where they said, down with all the Francos, which was a reference to the Spanish Civil War. But of course, Lesko is reading that and is incensed because he sees that as a not so veiled comment against his own government. He forces the student newspaper to close, and eventually, as we saw in 1930 with the student movement, the students then protest against it. Right? They protest against the actions of